Here is our New York City kid who got caught up in New York City traffic, Rebecca Huntt, director of Beba.
This is what happens when you don't take the train in New York.
You get fancy, they send you a car, you want to be riding in style, but
Yeah,
the A train is your friend, right?
yeah, exactly. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed.
Thanks
Thank you, Karen, for having me.
You're welcome, Rebecca. It's good to see you, as always. So, all right, let's jump in. So, you decided to explore your coming of age on film for all to see, but, which was your choice to tell your story. But you, along with it, brought the family along with you. So, talk about navigating your need to tell your story and, the fine line of exposing some family dirty laundry, if you will.
Yeah. My vision was for me to be able to move through the world more authentically and communicate with people on a more authentic level, connect. And in order to do that, I would have to, as you said, expose myself and my story in a time when I felt like people weren't really, there's all these discourses going on about different things that it didn't really feel like there was the authenticity was lacking. And so when I decided that I was going to tell my story, my family is an inextricable part. Like, these are some of the most personal, intimate relationships that one can have, as, their siblings, their parents. And I definitely felt like it was definitely something interesting to navigate, because I didn't hide anything from anyone, but it was going to be my way and my lens and the way that I saw it. And the main focus was going to be my bullshit. But, they're a part of that, so.
As you were extricating and examining all this stuff, do you feel like you were able to be really subjective, or were you kind of wanting people to be on your side a little bit, or are you just putting it out there for people to do with it as they would?
I think that changed over time. Like, maybe at one point, I don't know if I ever thought about wanting people to be on my side, because I didn't see it as like me against anybody. It was more just like, this is what I'm going through, and these are the things that I'm navigating. There were certain, if I'm being completely honest, there were certain things, and the way that certain things were written, or the way that I had portrayed my family members in earlier, writings or something, where I was gonna share something that didn't necessarily have to do with the overall goal of the film, but was like an intimate nugget that was an unnecessary exposure for them. So it was really sort of about being extremely disciplined and being like, do I need this? What purpose does this serve? Does this serve the purpose of the film? And, thankfully I had a really great team who was also very honest with me when some of those thoughts would come up. But I think overall, what the film, it was a process, because there was a very specific goal that was so much bigger than anything I could ever think or even be or feel.
So we don't see, obviously, in the media ever, stories about young black women, young Latino women, really very few, if any, about Afro-Latino women, right? Are you surprised at the success that the film has had?
I'm shocked every single day of my life. Thank you guys so much for staying for the Q&A. I really appreciate it. Every single day I'm shocked, because the main goal of this film was to see if I knew someone in some obscure museum who would play it from my friends and family. So I think it's amazing, and I think it's just a testament to how much, and it's, these stories aren't just for us, they're for everyone. Like, it's everybody wants to see these stories. There are large audiences for these stories, for these experiences, for these diverse human experiences. That's the point. That's art. That's the point of art, is for us to be able to connect on like an anti-systemic level, and just on a very human level with each other. So there's an audience for it if it's made from the heart.
Yeah, there's a universality to a family story. And I think we've kind of covered the white cis male experience in the world on
Me
film.
too.
I think we can put a pin in that one for a few years. So you know, this has been out. It's been on the festival circuit for a while, and you're not in New York anymore. You've moved yourself to Mexico, and can you just share a little bit about what you're doing and what's next for you?
Well, I'm gonna be ADing for a Mexican director I love very much, or whose films I love very much, and then I will be working on my first feature script narrative feature. Well, I'm working on the script now, but after the ADing process, I'll be going in fully, and just taking some time to process this year and this experience and this film, and making sure that I'm focused and healing so that I can go back in and give you guys everything I have all over again, because you deserve it and the world deserves it. And yeah.
It's an interesting move for a director to go back into ADing. I mean, you've already directed. Most people don't go back. Can you talk about your choice to do that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the Romans and the Greeks and, the greatest philosophers and scientists, artists that we have throughout human history have been pupils their entire lives. And I think that for me, like, I will always be a student. I will always be a cinephile. This is someone whose work I really appreciate for something very specific that he's able to do with his method, which inextricably which moves through both narrative and documentary, which are the two loves of my life. I'd never be able to choose. But he is able to move through them so seamlessly because he doesn't use actors for his films. And usually the films that he's making, the actors are of the area in which he's making it in, and he immerses himself for years there. But he's writing a script along the way. And so there are certain things that he's able to do that I love the opportunity to witness him doing, and in that also, give myself some time and space to recoup, revamp, fill up, so that I can go and do this. And if it takes me another 8 years, it'll take me another 8 years. It won't, hopefully, because a lot of that was about money. But so I can give it all again, But I think that that's the most important thing is, like, I will always be a pupil. I will always be a pupil to cinema. I will always be a student of cinema, and I'm always learning.
The question is about your sound design and working with a composer.
So, okay. Well, our composer, Holland, they are amazing, and it was all, just in terms of the original score, a lot of it was late night conversations about feelings and emotion, and then them just going in. I mean, they play every single instrument. They're also a performance artist. Like, they also just came out with a new album, Holland Andrews. So if you guys, if you're interested. And Holland also worked very closely with my editor, amazing Isabel Friedman, who was a bass player and understood sort of how to kind of like hit those marks, within the cut. So I was coming in more with sort of the emotional, like, okay, and this is how it should feel. And like we were having like, Holland and I were having like late night conversations about like next level shit. And then she would give us something, and then Isabel would be like, all right, like, let's have it hit exactly at this mark, or let's cut this out. So that was definitely a collaboration. And then in terms of the sound design, I spent 3 months on just the sound design with Abraham Chakra, who's a Mexican sound designer. Just kind of making sure that, because I think if you don't see the film in the theater, I think you lose like 40% of the film, at least. Because it's such an intimate film, and because we're such sensory beings, it was extremely necessary to make sure that you were getting that from all angles, and like, that the frequencies were coming through, and not in the way, because I think a lot of films do that in a way to manipulate, and I think this was more like what does it feel like to, when you know, like there's this one part which I won't get into too much, but what does it feel like when you are like walking down the street and all of a sudden get hit with this intense sadness or intense fear that is totally irrational, that will be gone in 10 or 15 minutes, but there's like, you literally hear things differently in that moment. And like, how do we create a universe in which we're presenting these frequencies and reflecting them in the best way possible? And that's why it took so long to do the sound design. I think there's a level of self-acceptance that this film has forced upon me, and it's amazing because I feel like I'm not necessarily the most, like, it would have taken me a very long time to accept myself on this level. And I just think it's interesting to observe how our need for hyper definition and categorization. And so it's like, here this is showing you, you know, like, we are these vast vessels of energy and matter, and homies are still trying to like, and it's like, all right, cool, like that's cool too, whatever you need.
Any other questions? The question is about your family's reaction to the film, and has it changed your relationship with them?
My parents accept the film and love. I don't know how much they love the actual film or like how much they get it, but they loved coming to the festivals. So like, they loved being in Tribeca. They came to every event. And my siblings, they honestly, I feel like with them, it's they understand. I wasn't as worried about them because my parents are like a different generation, and for them to have that acceptance, I'm like, I'm down, and for them to enjoy it, I'm down. With my siblings, like, we're all the same generation, we're all out here, they're like, yo, do what you have to do, like, you know, so everyone's good. And in terms of the relationships, I mean, the relationships that I have with them, my parents don't look like how they did when I was 25, which is with the film. I'm 32 now, and the film is like illustrating me in my 20s, my mid-20s. It ends in my mid-20s. But the film did not change our relationships. I think there's maybe quantum things that have gone on within themselves that maybe they will never share. But I've changed and I've grown. So maybe that's all I know, you know? And I'm always changing and growing.
We have time for one more. The question is, were there themes that emerged during the editing process that you weren't expecting?
Well, I'm a water sign. Well, I'm like a rising water and moon water sign. I'm actually a Taurus, but I'm Scorpio. And water is very important to me and like in my healing process. And it's so funny because I thought about this the other day, and I'm living in this landlocked mountain town, and I'm like, ugh, but it forces me. It forces me to like move, you know, like water, because I don't have any water. So anyway, so I think water being something that comes up so much in the film came afterwards, and I was like, oh, that makes total sense. Like, I love water. I love the beach. Like, I feel very comfortable in water, even though I'm not a great swimmer. Like, I will still jump into the middle of the ocean and like figure it out. Call for a buoy if I need one, but haven't yet. So, yeah, I think that's one of them. But there are also other things that I noticed that I was like, oh, that's interesting. There's discoveries all along the process.
I think that's all we have time for. Thank you all so much for staying, and thank you, Rebecca, for sharing so courageously your story.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're
This is
welcome.
great.